Expert sex advice is all around us. From Cosmo to BuzzFeed, there are generic articles or lists telling us what women want, what's missing in our sex life, what 10 things we need to do to hold on to our man. So how do we sift through this bullshit and really learn about and explore our sexual selves? The truth is, the only real expert of our body and our experience is us. We are the experts of our own lives. These interviews seek to unveil and unravel diverse people's sexual experiences and preferences, with the hope of igniting you, the viewers' personal journeys to accept, understand, and create your own healthy sexual boundaries and lifestyles. Remember, though, you don't have to go through this alone. We all need some physical and emotional help along the way. For further questions and more videos, subscribe to my channel or check out my website, Nicoletta V. Heidegger, available in my About section for inquiries. Thanks, and I hope you enjoy. So what I just want to make sure I like to ask everybody, what are your preferred gender pronouns?
Oh, she, I'm cis.
Okay, cool. All right. So tell me a little bit about what you do and about yourself.
Okay, well, I'm an electronics technician. Well, I quit my job to go back to school full time, and I changed majors from electrical engineering to computer science. So, yeah, that's my new goal, computer science, and I like it. And I've kind of always been interested in robotics and things like that my whole life, since I was a kid.
Cool, good for you.
Thanks.
Do you find that you're one of the only females in a lot of your classes, or one of few?
Yeah, that is true. In my electronics courses and electrical engineering, I was so often the only girl in the classroom, and sometimes there'd be one or two others.
What was that like?
Not as weird as all my peers assumed it should be for me. I don't know. I was kind of used to it. I was a bit of a tomboy growing up. Most of my friends that I related to better were guys, so I don't know. It wasn't that weird for me.
Yeah, me too.
But it did make me a little more feminine. I don't know. To represent. I started wearing more pink in dresses and things.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about your sexuality and your relationship preferences.
Okay, so I've been on a journey exploring my sexuality recently because I used to think that I wanted just marriage and kids and was trying to find the ideal thing you path to that. So I limited myself to dating only one gender and was trying to, find, I don't know, this impossible standard. Because I finally realized that I don't really want those things. And since then, I've realized I don't have to limit myself to one gender, and I've come to figure out that I'm pansexual, and also that I've never really had any hangups toward polyamory or other poly situations, so I've been exploring those too, and I've never been happier, to be honest, because monogamy is pretty limiting, and yeah.
What helped you decide that monogamy wasn't really for you?
I guess pretty much as soon as I realized that I don't want kids anymore, like it, and I've since realized that you can make that work, that I could have. I just was trying to do, what society and my parents and everyone thought was best, and I've started living for me now, so,
and you said you've never been happier.
Yeah, exactly. I don't really get jealous, so for me it's a really easy thing to do.
I think that's a huge topic for a lot of people that talk about polyamory or dating multiple people. How do you curb those jealous feelings? Or do you feel like you're just not a jealous person?
Yeah, I wish I had tips for people, but I'm just not a jealous person, so...
Oh, we should all be so lucky. So you said a little bit about your family. How did you learn about sex growing up from your family?
Well, that's one thing I think they did mostly right. They taught me kind of the scientific definition when I was 6 or younger, because my mom was pregnant with my younger brother and I had questions. And they told me, like, straight up, like, well, guys have this part and women have this part, and put it together and make a baby, a little more detail than that, I think. But, it wasn't, like, weird. It didn't take the special out of sex. It's just, it is what it is, and I was old enough to, learn about it. and I was fine with it. And then my parents were pretty open and honest about those things. So it wasn't hard growing up and being, how to explain. Yeah, I don't know.
So,
But, yeah.
do they know about your like sexual journey now, or would you say that they kind of just have their own assumptions about your preferences?
It's kind of different for each parent. My mom knows kind of about all of my journey because she's more readily accepting. My dad, I'm not sure he could handle it, so he doesn't know yet.
What do you think would happen if he
Well, I
talked
remember
about
once
it?
in high school, I was 16, and I said that, I don't know, I was a frustrated teenager, and I said that I'm done with men, I'm going to start dating women now. And which wasn't just a joke for me because I'm actually attracted to both. But and maybe he could sense that, and he got all worried. And he's like, "Well, if you go gay, I'm gonna hang out with you less and love you less." Is basically what he said.
Wow, that must have been really difficult
Yeah,
to
and that
hear.
was shortly before his best friend of 24 years came out of the closet, and he has become more accepting of gay since. But he doesn't understand things like pansexual or polyamory or any of those things. Like trying to explain it to him would be a very uncomfortable conversation, to say the least.
Has his perspective or his feelings impacted you and your journey at all?
Yeah, just to hold me back. I don't know. I didn't want to disappoint him, so I might have started this exploration a lot sooner.
That's a lot of pressure. So you're talking about polyamory and pansexuality. So what does being pansexual mean to you?
Okay, well, what it means to me is that gender is not a relevant factor on who I'm going to be attracted to, and I'm capable of being attracted to any gender or, both like physical sex or gender identity. Like it doesn't like the whole spectrum I could be attracted to.
Cool. Do you have a preference?
Yeah. I've come to realize that I have a slight preference for people who are a little gender bent or gender fluid. So if they're like totally fit the stereotype of masculine or totally fit the stereotype of feminine, I'm not as attracted as I am if they're, a little bit farther from the stereotypes.
Cool. Like someone who's walking down the street and you're like, I don't know if you're a guy or a girl. I like you.
That's true too, yeah.
Nice. And so what does polyamory mean to you?
For me, polyamory just means, a lot of things. It's kind of complicated. It depends who you ask. But to me, it means that I can love more than one person. And it means that I'm not limiting myself to one person on either relationships or sex or, anything along those lines.
And how did you learn about this kind of lifestyle? Like, did you have any role models or places that you looked to for support, or did you just kind of go on the journey by yourself?
Fortunately, I had friends, role models, who were already identifying that way. A friend of mine who started posting a lot of things about bisexuality, and around the same time, I figured out that I didn't want to have kids anymore and started questioning, well, I always suspected I was bi, but never really looked into it. And so that was helpful. And then also, I have a few female friends who identify as poly.
Mm-hmm. So they were helpful to talk to.
Yeah.
Cool. So do you have any partners right now?
I do. Just recently, in fact.
Congrats.
I got a primary. Thank you. Before now, I've kind of just been a single girl dating poly people. So now I can say I'm officially polyamorous because I've got a poly boyfriend.
Cool. So he's poly too, and he's what does primary mean for you?
For me, it's a new term, but for me it means that, I guess how to explain? Like I can have like other relationships and other sexual relationships and whatnot, but he's kind of like my go-to shoulder to lean on, in life. And yeah.
Do you have an idea of how many you would allow yourself at a time to juggle?
I'm still figuring that out. I'm not
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, I haven't had multiple like titled relationships yet, so I'm not really sure. But I could probably handle 2 or 3 at least.
Yeah. Is it difficult to? I mean, I know you said you haven't had a few titled ones at a time yet, but is it difficult, you think, to balance the time?
No, not really. I mean, I'm a busy person, so it's kind of hard to make time for one person, but we all get busy, and so if my primary is busy, then there's other people to fall back on, for either sexy time or other, emotional needs.
Sounds kind of nice.
Yeah, it is nice.
What do you think is the biggest? I mean, I know you're kind of new in this lifestyle, you said, but have you faced any assumptions by people? Like, what do you think the biggest?
I have, especially if I'm like starting to talk to a guy about maybe going to date or start some sexual relationship of sorts or whatever, but we're in the talking phase. They'll pretend to be okay with the polyamory thing and pretend to think it's interesting, but as soon as I decide that I don't want to continue for whatever reason and reject them, then their go-to lashing out is saying that polyamory is illegitimate. Basically, they say that it doesn't count or I'm doing it wrong, and it's only love if you save it for one person and all this kind of thing. So I'm already facing quite a bit of that.
But they were cool with it when you liked them.
Yeah, they were cool when I liked them, but as soon as I was like, you're not on the same page on the sexual maturity stuff, and I don't want to do this with you anymore.
Yeah.
Then they kind of lashed out about that.
So communication's obviously a huge part of all of your relationships. It must be.
Yeah, communication is key. If you can't talk about sex, then you probably shouldn't be having it, in my opinion, because it's kind of it's complex and there's a lot of important things to consider, like consent. And if you're not talking, how do you know that it's consensual?
Absolutely. Are there any other misconceptions that you feel like people have about poly lifestyle or being pansexual?
Yeah. What else? For pansexual, I haven't faced a whole lot of stigma there yet, but maybe because I'm not really out of the closet yet publicly. Like I tell my friends, but it's not on Facebook, and my dad doesn't know, for example. So I haven't faced a lot of stigma to do with it yet, but some of my friends do. They don't. A lot of people just don't understand it.
Yeah. Do you think? How would you define the difference between people who say they're bisexual versus pansexual?
Oh, well, my understanding is that bisexual, at least according to bisexual.org, is been somewhat defined in a way that's more like pansexual anyway. So bisexual might be the one that people like my dad would understand better, and so I still use the word too. I identify as both. It depends who I'm talking to. But on bisexual.org, I believe it says that the bi they're referring to is I'm attracted to people with the same gender as me and to people with other genders. So, I mean, it's so pansexual. So
there's some similarities.
Specifically bisexual, though. They're only attracted to truly masculine or truly feminine people. I haven't met anyone like that yet, but apparently that's okay to be.
Yeah. So if you were meeting with a doctor or a therapist or any person in like the medical field, is there anything that you would want them to know when working with you? Or to be sensitive about?
Yeah, there is and there isn't. See, I have this belief that medical professionals are more conservative on issues around sex than the population in general, than average. They're kind of, in my experience, more critical and less understanding of alternative ways of, doing relationships and sex and everything.
Kind of seems opposite of how it should be if they're treating people for health stuff,
It does, but if you think about it, they've got so many years of school and they have to focus so much that probably their own sex life goes on the back burner.
Mm.
The best way to learn about these things is
to do it.
Exploring your own job, yeah. So I would say that I keep it from them, my new sexuality, because I don't want to be depending on, like, I don't want to be treated different or treated less well or stigmatized or any of those things.
So there's still a lot of stigma that you see.
Now, yeah. Well, I do wish that they were more understanding of it, aware of things like polyamory, pansexuality, transgender issues they're getting better at, but they're, at least in California. But I just wish it wasn't an issue that I could just say, oh yeah, I'm pansexual and polyamorous, and
they could kind of understand a little bit what that meant.
Yeah, and if I was able to say that and they knew what that meant and didn't have judgments and just treated me accordingly, then it'll be great. Yeah. But the way it is right now, I feel like I should keep it to myself.
So on the subject of health and things, do you have any specific sexual health considerations, knowing that if you're dating multiple people at a time?
Yeah, well, I found out that poly people who are already been identifying as poly for a while, are safer in general. They get tested more frequently. They are much more willing to default to condoms. They don't. They're rarely asked, "How about we skip the condom?" Like they just assume that's how you do sex. Those kind of things.
Yeah, because it sounds like they're juggling a bunch of people's, affections and emotional health too. Yeah.
But so far they communicate better and they're safer, and I like it better. Yeah.
Cool. Do you have any advice for somebody interested in this kind of lifestyle? Because as someone who's just kind of entering that journey yourself, do you have any advice for someone who's kind of questioning and wondering what they should do?
Yeah, I guess the advice I would give is to find other people who are, poly to talk to. Like if they're considering it, it would be useful to talk to someone else who's polyamorous or something along those lines. Because having friends who are already identified as that was very helpful for me. Also to communication. If they have trouble with that, they should definitely make an effort on being able to talk about everything sexual.
Yeah.
If they have difficulty talking about something that's important and related to sex, and it's worth their time to work on that.
Yeah. Is there anything or any sources in particular that, let's say someone comes from a small town or kind of a closed-minded area, that they could find online or something that you've found helpful that they could maybe find somebody to talk to?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm sure there are online resources. I'm not really familiar. There's a book I would recommend that a poly person recommended to me called The Ethical Slut.
Yeah, it's a good one.
It's a good one. I like it.
What'd you think about it?
I really liked it. I felt like it was speaking right to me.
Yeah. A lot of people say it's like the poly Bible.
Yeah, it's a really good resource. And also, I've had straight monogamous friends tell me that it was still a really useful book in the communication chapters and made their relationships better. So it's a good read for anybody too.
Oh, awesome. Good shout out for that book. Okay, so last question, and then I'll open it up if you have anything you want to ask me. If you feel comfortable saying, I try to get a feel for just people expressing different sexual preferences, because I think it helps people getting to talk about that topic that a lot of people are scared to talk about. Do you have any fun, quirky, or vanilla things that you're really into that turn you on?
Yeah, I guess so. My big thing is variety, so I'm always trying something new. The new thing I'm getting into is trying out some BDSM stuff. I like whips can be fun, clamps are fun, and
are you more dominant, submissive, or switch?
Switch. Yeah, sometimes submissive is fun, but it gets a little boring after a while, and then I want to be dominant.
So all about variety is the spice of life.
Yeah, it is for me. It is. Yeah, but also I like my favorite thing is kind of vanilla-ish. I really like 6ix9ine. It's my favorite.
Yeah, cool. Well, awesome. Obviously there's lots of poly people and there's lots of pansexual people. And so everyone kind of has a different journey and a different description of sort of what got them there. And so kind of showing that everyone is the expert of their own experience. So if there's anything, about you that you want to share, I care about your personal experience and your journey.
All right. Well, I guess the biggest thing that I care about that resonates with me is to try not to project your preferences on everybody else. I'm facing this in both worlds before exploring poly and everything. Like cis straight people will often assume that that gay must be a choice because they're attracted to the opposite sex, so everyone else must be too. But I find that kind of problem in the poly world too, where they'll say like, well, I can make it work, so can everybody. Everybody should be poly. And I don't necessarily believe that's true. I don't believe that there is any one size fits all on relationship or sex styles. I think that how you're raised and your personality and your things you're comfortable with, your goals for the future, all that matters and plays a role in what is going to be best for you. So if you do get really jealous and other factors like that, maybe polyamory, I think it's worth trying.
It might be harder for you.
I think it's worth trying, but it's not for everybody.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And thank you for sharing your stuff, even the hard things about your parents. And I know that can be a scary topic, being, raised in that way that feels more conservative and speaking so openly. So I appreciate you sharing your story.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah.